August 15th could go down in history as the day the world stepped back from the brink, or the day we took a giant leap toward it. Right now, tensions between the United States and Russia are no longer just about diplomacy. They have turned into visible, undeniable military moves. In the past few days, the Trump administration has openly positioned two nuclear-armed submarines close to Russian-controlled waters, a move confirmed by Reuters and the BBC. This is not routine. It's a rare and deliberate signal. Moscow has responded by raising the alert level of its strategic forces and reviving talk of the dead hand, the Soviet-era automatic nuclear retaliation system built to launch weapons even if the country's leadership were wiped out. For those unfamiliar, dead hand is not fiction. It's a real Cold War system designed to ensure mutual destruction if Russia were under existential attack. Now, this all comes as Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin prepare for a high-stakes meeting on August 15th, a date that could mark either a turning point toward peace or the most dangerous escalation since the Cold War. So what's really at stake? And how did we get here? To understand why August 15th matters so much, we need to trace the events of the past few weeks. After months of rising tensions over Ukraine and increasingly aggressive statements from Moscow, the United States has shifted from quiet deterrence to open military signaling. Deploying nuclear submarines within striking range of Russia is widely seen by analysts, including those cited by the BBC and Foreign Affairs, as a direct message. U.S. deterrence is no longer just press releases or behind-the-scenes moves. It's out in the open. Historically, the exact location of these submarines is a closely guarded secret. Surfacing or publicizing them is a calculated escalation. The Kremlin, in turn, has responded with a mix of provocation and caution. Officials have claimed that Medvedev's dead hand comments were purely defensive, but at the same time, strategic forces were put on higher readiness. NATO has increased drills in the Baltic states and Poland, while China has stepped up its military presence in the Pacific, particularly around Taiwan and the South China Sea. The world is entering a multi-front standoff where a misstep on one side could trigger a chain reaction on another. The August 15th meeting is not happening in a vacuum. It comes at a moment when military posturing on both sides is more visible than it has been in years, and the stakes could not be higher. For Trump, this is more than a diplomatic photo op. It's a calculated opportunity to project strong leadership both at home and abroad, reassuring his base that he is willing to confront Moscow head-on, while also testing the waters to see if there's any room for negotiation without appearing weak. According to reporting from Reuters and Politico, Trump's advisors are split, some pushing for a hardline stance that draws red lines on Ukraine and NATO's eastern borders, others suggesting a more transactional approach to find common ground on arms control or sanctions relief. For Putin, the meeting is just as strategic. As detailed in analysis by the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, it's a chance to take the measure of Trump directly, bypassing the layers of diplomatic back and forth, and to gauge exactly how far Washington is willing to go in defending Ukraine and reinforcing NATO's eastern flank. Putin will be looking for signs of hesitation, opportunities to drive wedges between NATO members, and possible openings to secure concessions without giving up much in return. The possible outcomes range widely. On one end of the spectrum, there's the slim but real possibility of a temporary de-escalation, perhaps a limited ceasefire in contested regions or a framework for future arms control talks. This would echo the 1985 Reagan-Gorbachev summit in Geneva, which helped cool Cold War tensions and pave the way for the INF Treaty. On the other end, there's the risk of a total breakdown in talks, with both sides walking away more entrenched than before. This could mirror the failed diplomacy in the run-up to the 2003 Iraq War, where hardened positions and mutual distrust left no room for compromise. Defense One and the Council on Foreign Relations both caution that in high-stakes summits like this, the substance is only part of the story. The tone of the post-meeting statements, every word, every pause, every subtle shift in language, can send powerful signals to military planners, markets, and allied governments. Even a single ambiguous phrase, if interpreted as aggressive or dismissive, could be read by the other side as a green light to escalate. And with both nations' nuclear forces on higher than usual alert, the margin for misinterpretation is razor thin. The August 15th meeting is not just another item on the diplomatic calendar, it's a potential turning point where the trajectory of U.S.-Russia relations could bend toward stability or plunge into deeper crisis. While Washington and Moscow prepare for August 15th, other major powers are not sitting still. They are shaping the strategic environment in ways that could either complicate or completely derail any progress. China, according to the South China Morning Post, and confirmed by satellite imagery reviewed by defense analysts, has ramped up military drills around Taiwan and throughout the South China Sea. These exercises are not symbolic. They include simulated amphibious assaults, long-range missile tests, and close-range encounters with U.S. naval units. Just last week, a Chinese destroyer closed within 150 yards of an American guided missile cruiser in what U.S. Navy officials described as unsafe and unprofessional maneuvers. Beijing's message is clear. If the U.S. is tied up in Eastern Europe, China is ready to press its own territorial claims more aggressively. NATO, for its part, has been quietly but steadily reinforcing its eastern flank. In the Baltics and Poland, alliance forces have conducted integrated missile defense tests using the Aegis Ashore system and Patriot batteries, while rapid deployment drills have seen thousands of troops moved into forward positions within days. To Moscow, these moves look less like routine exercises and more like preparations for a fight, fueling its narrative that NATO is the aggressor. Meanwhile, North Korea has seized the moment to remind the world it's still a nuclear-armed wildcard. State media announced the successful launch of several new short-range ballistic missiles, timed conspicuously to coincide with joint U.S.-South Korean military drills. These tests not only improve Pyongyang's tactical capabilities but also serve as a political message that it will not be ignored while global attention is fixed elsewhere. Iran is also accelerating its nuclear program, with officials in Tehran claiming they have increased uranium enrichment levels and expanded underground centrifuge facilities. These developments, reported by Al Jazeera and the Associated Press, have triggered alarm bells in Israel and across the Gulf states, where military planners are already considering contingency strikes should Iran cross certain thresholds. What makes this picture especially dangerous is how interconnected all these flashpoints are. A sharp escalation in one region, whether it's a skirmish in the Taiwan Strait, a missile launch in the Korean Peninsula, or a drone strike in the Gulf, could force the U.S. or its allies to shift military assets, change alert levels, or make sudden strategic decisions. That, in turn, could alter Moscow's or Beijing's calculations, creating a chain reaction of responses and counter-responses. In today's world, pressure in one hotspot can ripple across the globe in hours, collapsing the fragile balance that keeps major powers from sliding into direct conflict. The greatest danger right now isn't necessarily a deliberate decision to start a war. It's the possibility of an accident, a miscalculation, or a false alarm, triggering a chain reaction no one can stop. History already gave us chilling examples, like the 1983 incident when Soviet officer Stanislav Petrov decided to ignore what the computer was telling him. A missile launch from the United States. He trusted his gut, thinking it was a false reading, and he was right. His decision may have literally saved the planet from nuclear war. But here's the problem. The systems we have today are far more automated, and the reaction windows are much shorter. In the Cold War, leaders might have had 20 or 30 minutes to confirm whether a threat was real. Now, advanced detection systems, satellites, and AI-assisted analysis mean decisions could be made in under 10 minutes, sometimes even less. That sounds like progress, but it leaves far less room for human judgment. And once an automated sequence begins, stopping it can be difficult or impossible. Modern hybrid warfare makes this even more dangerous by mixing conventional military moves with cyber attacks, economic pressure, and disinformation campaigns. Imagine a cyber attack taking down power at a NATO base right when tensions are high. or an early warning radar suddenly going dark due to a technical glitch, but interpreted by the other side as a deliberate attempt to blind defenses. Homeland Security reports and Pentagon briefings have warned for years that cyber intrusions into critical defense infrastructure are not just possible, but have already been attempted by state actors. In fact, U.S. Cyber Command has documented multiple incidents where malicious code was found inside systems linked to nuclear command and control. Add to that the risk of spoofing, where hackers send false signals to make it look like a missile launch has occurred. In a crisis, leaders may not have the luxury of double-checking before responding, and a single misread signal could spiral into a global catastrophe. Experts at the Atlantic Council and Rand Corporation agree. The closer we get to near-instant reaction times, the more we rely on machine data, and the more unpredictable and dangerous escalation becomes. For decades, nuclear deterrence operated quietly in the background, a strategic shield most people never thought about unless it came up in a history lesson about the Cold War. It was there, but it was invisible. Today, it has moved out of the shadows and into plain sight. When the public can see images of strategic submarines in known locations, when officials speak openly about systems like Russia's Dead Hand that were once whispered about only in classified briefings, and when leaders exchange threats in language that leaves little room for interpretation, it means the old rules of discretion and quiet signaling are eroding. This shift changes how both ordinary citizens and national leaders must think about security. For Americans, it means that the kind of developments once tracked only by intelligence agencies and defense think tanks are now worth personal attention. A sudden change in the U.S. military's DEFCON level, an unexpected surge in troop movements toward Eastern Europe or the Pacific, or an unusual joint announcement from FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security. These are no longer abstract bureaucratic signals, but potential indicators of a rapidly changing threat environment. Even everyday Americans might begin to notice subtle changes like increased air patrols over U.S. cities, more frequent emergency alert system tests, or unexplained restrictions on certain airspaces and shipping lanes. For U.S. allies in NATO, especially those on the alliance's front line like the Baltic states and Poland, and for countries situated in other high-tension regions such as the Black Sea and the Western Pacific, this shift demands constant recalibration of defense strategies. It may mean keeping more forces on permanent alert, hardening infrastructure against both conventional and cyber attacks, and engaging in rapid coordination exercises with partners. Governments in these regions understand that a single misread signal or a delayed response could carry enormous consequences in the current climate. Globally, this visible return of nuclear deterrence also impacts diplomacy, economics, and public perception. Stock markets react sharply to news of military mobilizations, energy prices spike when shipping routes are threatened, and civilian populations feel the psychological weight of knowing that the world's most destructive weapons are not just relics, they are active parts of today's strategic playbook. Which brings us to the question that will define this week and possibly this year. When the dust settles, will August 15th be remembered as the day cooler heads pulled us back from the brink? Or as the day we crossed into a new era where open confrontation between nuclear powers is no longer unthinkable, but a daily reality? The answer may depend on decisions made behind closed doors, but the consequences will be felt far beyond them. I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think the August 15th summit will lead to a truce or push us closer to a dangerous escalation? Let me know in the comments and share this video so more people can understand what's really at stake, because staying informed right now isn't optional, it's essential.